Archambault.
Here.
Councilmember Leger.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hanson. Here. And Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Thank you very much. Please remind council members to speak into the microphone. Seems like they're a little sensitive tonight, not the council members, but the microphones. I'll go over some upcoming events here. Just note some of the high school activities are happening this weekend. The soccer teams are playing in the state tournament over at Red Mountain. I think both teams are at noon on Saturday, so if you have opportunity to head over to Mesa. First, I always want to thank everyone in our community for supporting our local businesses. As you know, support of them and their strength helps strengthen our community a great deal. So thank you for that ongoing support. The Art Walk continues, as it did today, out there on the avenue from noon until dusk every Thursday. And I am hearing very positive things about that. So thanks for supporting your local artists, because these are largely local Fountain Hills artists out there showing their creations. So take advantage of that next Thursday as well. We have a softball tournament this coming weekend at Golden Eagle Park. We also have a Fountain Hills coin and car show at the Presbyterian Church on Saturday. That looks like a fun time. If you're interested in coins or cars, probably are interested in both, head over to the Presbyterian Church this Saturday. And then next Saturday we have Public Safety Appreciation Day at Fountain Park, starting at 10 a.m. So more information on that on our website, and these other events are also on our some on our website and some are on the Fountain Hills Times and other community sites as well. Now I get to read a proclamation proclaiming February 13th, 2010 as Public Safety Day here in Fountain Hills. Whereas the Fountain Hills Rural Metro Fire Department and Maricopa County Sheriff's Office have dedicated themselves to the protection of life and property of citizens of the town of Fountain Hills, often at great risk to their own safety and well-being. And whereas the Fountain Hills Rural Metro Fire Department and Maricopa County Sheriff's Office have continuously supported efforts to elevate their standards and training and have been instrumental in improving methods of fire and crime prevention. And I'll make sure I didn't skip a line there, sorry. And whereas firefighting and police work are among the most hazardous professions and require extensive training, strength, endurance, courage, and a selfless concern for the safety of the citizens of Fountain Hills. And whereas the contributions and sacrifices of valiant firefighters and police officers often go unreported and are inadvertently recognized by, and are inadequately recognized by the public, and whereas the work of firefighters and police officers deserve the attention and gratitude of all individuals in the town of Fountain Hills, now therefore I, J.T. Shalom, Mayor of the town of Fountain Hills, hereby proclaim the 13th day of January 2010 to be Public Safety Appreciation Day in the town of Fountain Hills, and on behalf of the town council, hereby encourage all citizens of Fountain Hills to recognize and honor our firefighters and police officers for their efforts to keep our citizens safe. So that is the 13th, a week from this coming Saturday, down at Fountain Park. Thank you. Now we'll go on to call to the public. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. On to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to make a motion to accept items 1 through 4 on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dickey. Aye. Mayor Shlum.
Aye.
Councilmember Leger.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hanson. Aye. Councilmember Cantino.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Aye.
Councilmember Archambault.
Aye.
Mayor 7-0.
Thank you very much. On to item number 5, and the start of the regular agenda. Consideration of expenditure in the amount of $30,269 plus tax to Precision Electric Company for the repair of Fountain Lake Pump Number 2. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor Slum and members of the council. I'm joined this evening by our park supervisor, Don Clark. I also have Steve Belt, who is with Precision Electric, who we would propose to do the repair work on the equipment, and Ken Fairchild, who is a registered electrical engineer who has helped us in issues associated with the fountain in the past, and he is with Olson Associates. They are joining me this evening. So if there are some technical questions that I cannot answer, which will probably be most of them, I will simply turn to them for some help. To give you a little bit of background, several weeks ago, the staff noted that there was a diminished capacity on pump number 2. A short time after that, there had developed a noise coming from that particular pump. We asked Precision Electric to come in. They came in, did a diagnostic on site, and were able to determine that the repairs were going to be more extensive than they could do in the field. They, not surprisingly, the pump, because of its size, has to be pulled through the roof. So we came out with their crane. They were able to pull the complete assembly out, and it was clear when I stopped down there, where at least part of the problem was, there was a large longitudinal crack of probably 12 to 15 inches at the very top of the wet sump pipe that went down into the pit. Subsequent to that, they also discovered that there were some bearings inside that had frozen and were no longer rotating. They were simply grinding on the inside of the pump. So the issues clearly were mechanical and not electrical in nature. One of the reasons why we brought Mr. Fairchild in was to determine, to our benefit, have him review the pricing that was provided to us from Precision for the repair of the equipment, and secondly, to also investigate if there were some alternative methods that we might be able to take a look at. The idea that occurred to us, and I'm sure it's probably occurred to each of you, is would it make some sense to perhaps replace the system that's now 40 years old with a new pump and motor assembly. So we also had Precision Electric provide us a quote for that, and also asked Mr. Fairchild to take a look at what the costs were of that and see if it was reasonably priced based on the numbers that he could find, as well as determine if there were significant payback period and what that payback period might be. And so I will provide that information to you as well. Want to touch a little bit on the repairs because there are several functions to the repairs. Obviously, one is to pull and reset the pump and the motor. Would be reconditioning the 600 horsepower turbine pumps, be reconditioning the 600 horsepower 2300 volt motor. We cannot find any records where the town has done any extensive maintenance work on the pumps themselves. So our take on this is they were installed in the original early 70s, so those things have been operating for 40 years. So to phrase the gentleman, Mr. Belt from Precision Electric, the town has certainly got its money's worth from that particular equipment. If the decision is ultimately made to go with the refurbishing of the pump and the motor, we're looking at a warranty period for the pump of 1 year, and then because they're not doing anything extensive to the motor other than just checking it out and doing some testing of it, there's a 90-day guarantee on the motor. We also had, I neglected to mention that there would also be sandblasting and repainting the entire pump, which will again give us certainly a much better appearance of the pump, but also help both the motor and the pump last longer in our corrosive environment in the water. We did get a price, as I mentioned, of a little over $100,000 plus tax for the replacement of both the pump and the motor. This would be a high efficiency pump. Interesting enough, the technology for these size pumps hasn't changed significantly as far as the efficiency of the motors. So there wasn't really a whole lot of difference between the efficiency of the motor that we're running with now and a brand new motor. And because the payback period, because we're only running it 3 hours and 15 minutes every day instead of running it 24 hours a day, 365, the payback period is 18 to 20 years on a new model, and the cost is over 3 times as much as the repairs. So staff is recommending repairs. As I emphasized in my memo, these are not budgeted repairs, and they may in fact run our budget over in Fountain Park. But we are putting funding request in for this next year to be in a position where we can pull the other 2 remaining pumps and check and see if there's any issues associated with them. And lastly, under the provisions of the town purchasing policy under section 3-3-10, There's a provision in there for professional and technical services, which we certainly think these fall within. So we were able to simply get a quote from Precision Electric, based on the fact that they had to pull the equipment together, and it's literally laying in their shop as we speak. So with that, I would certainly answer any questions that you might have, or turn the mic over to either Mr. Belt or Mr. Fairchild.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone from the public on this one?
No, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council? Councilmember Contino.
Thank you. Mark, when you pulled the one off, wasn't there talk of looking at the other two to see how those shafts were too?
Well, the problem we have, Councilmember Contino, is we don't have the funds for those right now. We certainly could pull those, and I believe the cost was a couple $1,000s each to pull those. But we also felt like the likelihood of another pump rupturing in the next couple of months probably wasn't after 40 years, probably wasn't all that likely. So we did put it as a budget request for this next year. So assuming that those dollars are ultimately approved, we would be in a position to pull them as early as July.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, because I thought maybe while you had them off, you could do that, then know exactly closer figure of what you're going to have to pay out.
Yeah, and again, I don't think we'll really know that figure, like you suggested, until the pump is actually pulled, the other two.
Okay.
But again, we may be in a position then to budget in subsequent years for that repair if it's not something that's immediately needed.
And also on those motors, how much difference are the windings in this new one versus the old ones?
Well, as far as windings, I really can't answer that, but what we did have Mr. Olson do was run an analysis based on their percentage of efficiency of the motors, and so we looked at what the cost savings would be. And the issue there becomes, because we run at such a short amount of time per day, it really takes a long period of time, 18 to 20 plus years, to be able to pay back that additional cost. So the motors that we have are operating just about as efficiently as the newer ones. There is some savings, but it's an 18 to 20 year payback.
Okay, all right. And then also one more. When you run these pumps, are you going to be able to, the motors, are you going to be able to take and like run one motor one time and another one at the same time, and then shut them off and come back and hit the third one, and then go 3, 1, 2? In other words, all the time rotating.
We actually do that. We watch the run times on the fountains to make sure that we're not running up a disproportionate amount of time on any of them. So we try to keep the run times fairly close, the intent being that we're not putting extra hours on one particular pump, so that we won't have a situation where we've got two pumps down,
Right.
for instance, at the same time.
Okay, I forgot one thing. Power surges, are you still going to have the same amount, or are you going to have less power surge?
Well, again, based on the analysis that Mr. Fairchild had done a couple years ago for us, we haven't had issues with power surges. We haven't had problems with our equipment subsequent to any kind of electrical anomalies. Well, again, the soft start technology is another part of the equation. Because we don't load both pumps at the same time, we start one and then the other one starts, there isn't a whole lot of benefit, again, to at least what we could see from what was proposed with the soft start technology.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't talking soft start. I was just talking on the new motor, and that is it going to be more efficient power-wise when you first hit that pump on?
I don't know that we analyzed that. Is that something that specifically you could address? It would be what?
None.
Would be no difference.
That's what I want to know.
That's why I brought them along, because I could not answer those questions.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dickey?
Mayor, thank you. Are those warranties, the 1 year and the 90-day, is that pretty typical then?
As far as I know, it was typical. Obviously, you have a longer warranty if you buy new, but it's obviously a lot more expensive. I should also say that based on my conversation with Mr. Belt, you know, he said based on these repairs, you might get another 10, 15 years easily out of the equipment. But that doesn't mean we couldn't have another issue down the road too. So, but no different than your car. I see a lot of analogies between taking your car. Obviously, we're talking about higher dollar amounts, but that's the way I kind of framed it in my mind, to say you bring in your car, you ask the technician to take a look at it and tell you what's wrong. And when he's got it all torn apart, he says, well, you got to fix this, this, and this. So that's basically what we've done.
Cash for clunker pumps.
If there was, we would apply for stimulus money.
Councilmember Archambeau?
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, I'm glad to see that you're going to do an inspection on the pumps, or at least put some money in there for next year's budget, because one of the things that's important to I think this council and future councils is that we know what our infrastructure is looking like, how it's aging, and what repairs are going to have to be done in the future so that we can appropriately budget for them, so.
Yeah, and I should also...
Glad that you're looking into that.
I should also mention that what's being proposed, as indicated in my memo, on the motors is pretty minimal. All they're going to do is simply tear it apart, take a look at it, test it, reassemble it, and repaint it.
Will you be looking at the bearings on the motor? You're replacing those bearings, okay.
Yes.
I thought maybe the bearings you guys were talking about was down in the tube where the auger was.
That is too. The bearings also in the pump, we're going to change those out. Those bearings in the motor.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mark, and it was Mr. Fairchild and Olson. Are they both citizens that were assisting or part of this?
Mr. Fairchild is a consultant for Olson Associates. We have used them in the past to analyze the phase free, for instance, because of his expertise as a registered electrical engineer.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you, Council. Can we get a motion?
I move to approve the expenditures of $30,269 plus tax to Precision Electric Company for the repair of the fountain pump number 2.
Second.
All right. First and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Next item's number 6, presentation by Audra Kester Thomas, Chair of our Strategic Planning Advisory Commission, and discussion of the strategic plan update, working paper number 2, visioning report. Welcome, Audra. It's quite a report, so don't strain your back.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's a pleasure on behalf of the Strategic Planning Advisory Commission to again be here presenting to you at the end of Phase 2 of the Strategic Planning Update process. Before we begin, I just want to make a few notations. Rich Schultz, member of the Strategic Planning Advisory Commission, actually charter member of the Strategic Planning Advisory Commission, is with us this evening, and I'd also like to extend an appreciation to Shawna Williams' staff, to the Strategic Planning Advisory Commission for staying with us this evening for a few more hours, and actually extend a huge thanks to Rick and the rest of his staff who have been completely invaluable and supportive of this process. It's been a pleasure to work with your staff for the town of Fountain Hills.
Thank you.
Tonight's presentation will be a review of the strategic plan update process where we are to date, specifically a review of the Phase 2 process, the feature, the review of the vision and values, and as well as next steps for the planning process. As you'll recall, the strategic planning update process was devised as a 4-phased program. Phase 1 was an opportunity to do an audit on the current and the original strategic plan for the town of Fountain Hills. Had several components, as you will recall, including an evaluation of the strategic plan, its status of implementation, as well as its usefulness as a tool. And you'll recall having interviewed with members of SPAC your impressions of its usefulness, as well as SPAC talking to executive staff about how they use it and perhaps ways we can make it a little bit more user-friendly. We also identified any gaps with the current strategic plan, including implementation of its activities, its usefulness as a tool, as I noted, but also we revisited its original values and to see if they were ultimately still relevant. Because values is a key component of tonight's presentation and ultimately of this phase, I wanted just to provide you a quick review of what we learned in Phase 1 regarding the values. What we did is we took the original values as identified in the strategic plan, and we certainly saw initially some real strong support for a couple of them, including preserving the small town character, community participation, involvement, and volunteerism, environment, public safety. But there were a couple others that we didn't hear a lot about in Phase 1, and as you'll recall, were part of our initial dialogue for Phase 2, and that included cultural diversity, recreational opportunities, and education. During Phase 1, or at the end of it, SPAC also identified perhaps some other emerging values, as you'll recall, and they included economic vitality, health and welfare, and environmental sustainability. And so when I presented to you last fall, you'll remember that these were the kinds of dialogues we wanted to initiate in Phase 2, dig a little deeper, investigate a little further to see exactly what of these new or potential emerging values were relevant here in our community. So Phase 2 was really a visioning task, and the product ultimately, which you will see and I've already looked at, is the vision and the strategic vision and values. We did a lot of outreach activities throughout the fall. This process really started in August and ended in earnest in late November with SPAC taking the time to compile all the information in December and January. We had a feedback session which was available online, as well as a paper version that allowed residents to, at the own comfort of their own home or at their own convenience, provide us feedback. We had 3 feature issue forums where we invited the public to come and sit around like at a dinner table setting and dialogue regarding values and the future of Fountain Hills. We also had a lot of youth visioning, which was a real inspiring element of this phase. We had a planning day at Fountain Hills High School where we met with high school students all day and also worked in conjunction with the Boys and Girls Club to meet with some of our youngest residents in town. As you'll recall, when we organized the strategic plan update proposal, we advocated for going to where people are at. And one of the key features, especially since this was a grassroots effort, is that we wanted to go to existing organizations, meet with existing groups at the comfort when they would normally meet. Anyone who'd give us 5 minutes of their time, we were going to go out and chat with them. And we got to do that again during this phase and has been a real successful feature ultimately of the strategic planning update process, where established groups and organizations who would meet on a regular basis anyway lend us a few minutes of their morning or afternoon sessions, and we're able to dialogue with them. Our planning team, which was an established group of citizens who came together and kind of bounced our ideas off at important milepoints of the process. We met with them several times. We continued to meet with executive staff, and as you know, participated both in your fall retreat and then again in January at your goal-setting retreat. And then successfully met with every one of the other town commissions as part of Phase 2. And so we had a real comprehensive opportunity to meet with folks. We easily met with over 300 people during Phase 2, and as you know, because of some of this organic aspects where we're out meeting with other groups, we don't have a tangible number of folks that we met with, so we easily met with over 300 people, which brings our total over to 1,000 to date. But with the help of the Fountain Hills Times and Scottsdale Republic covering this project, we feel confident that we've been able to communicate this effort to over 10,000. So we had a lot of questions that we started asking for Phase 2, and this is just a list of some of them. As you'll remember, during Phase 1, people told us over and over again that they loved the sense of community and the quality of life and that small town feeling, and you'll remember me telling you during the Phase 1 process that a lot of people say that in a lot of different communities, and so we really wanted to figure out what that meant to folks. So we literally asked people to help us define what those terms meant. We asked people what change would bother you most. We heard a lot in the Phase 1 about not enough to do, so we asked people, what is it that we need to resolve that issue? We asked about the continuing role of employment opportunities here in this community. We asked folks, how can we maintain our high property values and even increase them? Said otherwise, we asked groups, your house, you pick up your house at its foundation, you plop it in another community in the valley, it's automatically worth less. There's an intrinsic additional value that's brought here in Fountain Hills. And what is that? Why is it valuable? And how do we promote it? What are the ingredients to a vibrant community? And we asked people to share with us what are communities they think are vibrant and what are those elements that make them vibrant. We asked folks again, what do you like about Fountain Hills today? What do you want to see for the future of Fountain Hills? And what else don't you want to see? 20, 30 years, what is it that you don't want to see in Fountain Hills? So here's some pictures from our events. These are at our November 4th and November 19th issue forum, and where we met and dialogued with residents. This last one here is at the Boys and Girls Club that was held on November 19th. And this one in particular was a really great event, particularly because of the people who came out for that event. These are folks that we normally don't see. It was a goal of ours to be able to outreach to community members that we don't normally see in public events, who don't normally come and visit with you on a Thursday evening. And this is a great opportunity to meet with a lot of folks. I'd say the average age in the room was probably less than 40, and that was great to see a lot of young folks out. And one of the reasons they were able to come out is because their kids were being entertained and playing at the Boys and Girls facility, which is a really great opportunity for us to ultimately use. What's interesting about this table in particular that you see is, at this point that I was taking this photograph, they were talking about how much they cared and loved Fountain Hills and why they moved to Fountain Hills and what they value about it. And they wanted the recorder to understand that just because they can't come out to town meetings or can't come out to open houses or public events, it doesn't mean they don't care about their community. They just have a struggle, as a lot of us do, to be able to balance what they do with their evening activities or balance an opportunity for finding childcare. And so it was neat to talk or listen to the comments at that table in particular. At our November 19th event also, what we ultimately utilized was ASU graduate students from the planning school who were able to come out and help us facilitate those table discussions and serve as recorders ultimately for that event. We also did youth visioning. These are pictures of students at the Fountain Hills High School. We met with 5 different classes, which is, I think I calculate 130-some students in one day. It was a Friday, luckily. I had the weekend to recover. We had a lot of great ideas from some of our youngest kids who really value a lot of your all the assets that you've already provided. Really value, but also see a lot of opportunity with some of the assets that we have. I distinctly remember one student saying, you know, Fountain Park, that's such a sick facility. You know, thinking about all the kinds of things that you can do if it was maybe just a little bit more accessible. We also leveraged our opportunity to meet with the Boys and Girls Club. It helps, of course, to have its director in the Strategic Planning Advisory Commission, and he was certainly helpful in that manner. But one of the activities some of the youngest students at the Boys and Girls Club did was create a new Fountain Hills a little bit. And so you'll see in this picture, Fountain Lake, right? And here's the fountain kind of sticking up. Couple features, there's a pet shop. Down here, there's a movie theater. And so interesting kind of three-dimensional recreation of Fountain Hills. The other thing that was really neat that we did with some of the youngest students was have them write letters to the town of Fountain Hills. We asked them a few questions, and what was really neat, I think, about being able to review a lot of these letters was, at the end of the day, these kids are valuing the exact same thing. They're wishing for a lot of the same things that we are. But kids aren't bound by these rational set of constraints that we all are, unfortunately, now. And so they're able to really think big. And so one of the questions we asked them to respond to is, some of the things I already like about Fountain Hills are the Fountain Park, the awesome people, the good community, all the pretty statues in Fountain Hills Park, and all the good restaurants. Then we asked them, when you think about the future of Fountain Hills, what do you wish we had? A movie theater and ice cream. Not necessarily a shocker. I heard ice cream from some of our oldest residents too, actually. I want more people because the stores need more business. I want to have cars that don't run on gas. And my favorite question, if you were a council member for a day, what would you do? I'd make the world a good place.
That's on our agenda later.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. I'd make everybody's life better. I wouldn't let anyone litter.
Future town manager.
And to be honest, you know, phases 1 and 2 were, like I told you, listening opportunities. All SPAC did in phases 1 and phases 2 were listen. That's all we did. And we're thankful for it because this student wanted to be a rock star as council member for a day. And it was heartbreaking for SPAC to have to perhaps tell this individual that being a rock star and a council member are probably, unfortunately, mutually exclusive concepts. And so I was relieved not to have to burden this student with the reality that, unfortunately, that might not be the case. So then we took all that feedback. It took several weeks, actually, to compile it. You can never accuse SPAC of not providing you good reading material from this point forward. And we consumed it. SPAC consumed all of that feedback. And we created, actually just looked at a syntax exercise, taking the words that were most frequently used, as you'll recall, in your goal-setting retreat. And ultimately, SPAC's first task was to identify values. And here's the 8 values that we identified: civility, civic responsibility, environmental stewardship, economic vitality, education, learning, and culture, maintain and improve community infrastructure, public safety, health and welfare, and recreational opportunities and amenities. And I'm going to go through each of these briefly. Civility. So what does valuing civility mean? It means that we're welcoming, we're a friendly population. We heard this in phase 1 and in phase 2 as people distinguished this community. When they came and visited or when they came and moved, they couldn't believe how nice the people were, and they really value that about this community. People value that there's civic discourse, that there's an opportunity to speak intelligently about opportunities and issues in our community, and that that's an opening opportunity without the fear of taking it to a personal level. And folks often told us that it's the one thing that may make them leave if there's a loss of civility within the community, that would turn them off and perhaps encourage them to move. People value seeing their friends and neighbors, whether it's out and about on a walk or at the grocery store, even as a social exercise and entertainment, being able to see folks at the store and taking 2 hours to get your groceries because you run into just so many people. Being greeted by name at merchants came up several times as a feature of civility. And ultimately, just having the sense of belonging in a community. Civic responsibility. There is a desire and a commitment to volunteerism in this community. Citizens also feel that they're responsible to contribute to the town's success. So it's not, again, just a JFK statement of asking your town what it can do for you, but, you know, what can you do for your town? There is a sense of instilled responsibility in our citizenry. That town fosters open governance, and that leadership is accessible. Folks noted over and over again, accessibility and friendliness of its leadership, and being able to approach you and discuss ideas and seeing you out and about, having that opportunity to dialogue. People really value that in this community. Environmental stewardship. It's the protection of the majestic viewsheds that we have. It's the stewardship of the Sonoran Desert. It's the prevention of noise, air, water, light pollution in this community. And it's the fostering of innovation and conserving resources, ultimately. It's that stewardship mentality. It's that sustainability mentality. Economic vitality. Ultimately, folks wanted to reduce the number of trips we and our neighbors have to take out of Fountain Hills. The fewer excuses, the better. And increase the time and money people spend in Fountain Hills. And it's not just us, but it's the folks who come and visit us. We want to increase that trip, or the money spent here, decrease the number of trips out. SPAC really benefited from the BVAC Town and Chamber Initiative of the Downtown Swabak Visioning exercise, because it really set a tenor, set a tone for the strategic planning process. And as I shared with you during phase 1, the recency effect, the concept that something's really recent or kind of on the front minds of folks, came up throughout this process. People really got on board. They like the opportunity of creating that viable, pedestrian-friendly, mixed-use development, quality mixed-use development here in downtown, and we heard enormous support of that throughout this process. And then ultimately, economic development activities that support the vitality and sustainability of our community and as a whole. Education, learning, and culture. A lot of parents especially told us that Parent Magazine article that they cite from several years back was the reason they moved to Fountain Hills, because this is a place to raise children in a quality education and learning experience. But it's not just kids' education, it's lifelong learning opportunities that are valued here as part of this community, and attention needs to be given ultimately to cultural enriching experiences as well. Access to fine arts was also noted, and something that we needed to invest in this community. Maintain and improve community infrastructure. As you saw in the report, it's not just the fountain, though I'm pleased with the motion and ultimately the exercise of the town council tonight to ensure our fountain is in good condition. It's all the town resources noted, like Councilmember Archambault said. It's really, folks told us this time, perhaps different from the first strategic plan process where folks still associated the town as new. People really understand that this community needs to be cared for, and some of the first things people recognize about a quality community are the streets, the condition of the streets and streetscape, and being able to invest in the backbone that serves the success of your community is critical, is what residents told us. Maintaining a clean and appealing community and investing in our future. Folks told us that that they support having the town continue researching revenue diversification and equalization of community maintenance across all members of Fountain Hills. Public safety, health, and welfare. Certainly we talked and heard from a lot of folks that public safety and security is really important, but it's more than just feeling safe in your own home. It's a sense of welfare, and a lot of folks told us it's a feeling they get when they come over the path from Shea. That one person I remember in an issue forum said it's like Fountain Hills pampers your psyche. There's something different here. There's a sense of welfare, good feeling that we want to steward as well. We value personal health. We value the opportunity to be out and about to not only learn, but to feed off of the beautiful Sonoran Desert, and that we promote healthy lifestyles in this community. We also love the fact that we have great access to amazing healthcare facilities. They may not be located in Fountain Hills or maybe just on the other side of the hill, but maybe there's an opportunity to take advantage of that access here in Fountain Hills as well, looking forward. And that we want to nurture the peaceful serenity of the community as well. Recreational opportunities and amenities. It's the park, pathway, and bike network and general connectivity of our activity centers and recreational resources. It's the recreational programming for all ages and not necessarily just kids, just adults and just seniors, but bringing opportunities for all of our residents to come together and enjoy activities at the same time. Not segmenting was really important. Community event celebration and activities, reasons for people to gather. Folks told us over and over again they wanted to see more of, and they don't necessarily have to be formal, but opportunities, excuses to bump into each other and come together is really something that folks looked at and told us, we heard over and over again, having just a normal place or an easy place to gather, a plaza, a piazza like you see in Europe where people can just naturally gather and spend some time is really something folks said they wanted. And entertainment options. So once SPAC identified those 8 values, we got together and had our own little visioning retreat. And as painful as it was. My favorite part of this is you see Kurt Dunham here, who's our vice chair, also a charter member of the Strategic Planning Advisory Commission, holding his head in perhaps agony as we sat hours and hours trying to devise, trying to wordsmith by committee a vision statement. And after a day of doing that fun, we ultimately crafted our vision statement. So, here's the drum roll moment, right? Fountain Hills is a distinctive community designed to invigorate the body, mind, and spirit, and strives to be stewards of this unique enclave dedicated to preserving the visual aesthetic and experience and to living in balance with the Sonoran Desert. We strive to champion the diversity of experiences our residents bring to our community and rely on this depth of experience to innovatively address our challenges. We strive to be economically sustainable, and we anchor our vitality in an active, vibrant town core that serves us culturally, socially, and economically. And we strive to be civic-minded and friendly, taking responsibility for our town's success by building partnerships and investing our talent and our resources. So next is Phase 3, which I guess starts tomorrow. This is where the rubber meets the road, honestly, where we will ultimately be designing, crafting the strategic plan update. Once we get to that point, we'll be receiving public feedback as well on that document, as well as holding a joint session with you at the draft stage at the end of March. Ultimately, after that March meeting, our Phase 4 is, of course, the adoption process, which we hope will go smoothly. And so we're coming quickly to an end. Unfortunately, SPAC thinks the hard work is done, and it's not. Don't tell them. And ultimately, we'll be meeting again soon to deliver to you a draft strategic plan. So with that, I'd love to take any questions that you have or any comments, and I'd be happy to address anything else that you might have to say.
Audra, thanks so much. Thanks for letting us use your skills that you bring as a volunteer to our town so much. So thank you very much. Anyone from the public to speak on this item?
No, Mayor.
All right. Let's see here. Let's look for a motion here. Anyone want to make the motion to receive and file the strategic plan update working paper number 2 visioning report?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thanks. Questions for Audra? Councilmember Archambault?
Audra, I just want to thank you publicly for all the work that you and the committee put into this. I mean, it's so easy to read, it's concise, it gives us, the vision that I think we've been going down for quite a while. I think it puts it down in words, and it's something that I think the town, the citizens of the town, when they see it, they can get their hands wrapped around it, much like we have our downtown vision plan, with the SWABAC and what SWABAC did for us. And I don't think the council can express enough appreciation in what you guys did. We certainly have the luxury of having professionals such as yourself and the SPAC committee in this town to be able to pull off of, and it's a real good feather in our hat, and it feels real good when I wear it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments for Audra?
One more.
Councilmember Dickey?
I just have a question, Audra. Thank you, Mayor. Yesterday or the day before, Morrison Institute came out with a paper. I wondered if you saw it because it's just so coincidental. It's totally about civic responsibility and having that on our radar screen. I just wondered if you saw it and had any comments on that.
Councilmember Dickey, members of council, I actually knew that they'd been working on that project, having had the pleasure of working at the Morrison Institute in my working life as much as I get to do of it. I haven't actually seen the final product yet, but I know that they've been working on it and thought to myself, actually over the winter, how coincidental perhaps it was, especially because the civility, specifically the value of civility, is truly, as I shared with you at your goal-setting retreat, is unique to this community. Getting this opportunity in communities across Arizona and frankly the Southwest, you see small town feel. People value that a lot in a lot of different communities, or environmental sustainability. But you don't often see people remarking on how they value being nice to each other. And I think that's very distinctive of this community, coupled, of course, with the sense of civic responsibility and volunteerism. And so I think that really does set Fountain Hills apart from other communities. And again, the Morrison Institute always trend-setting when it comes to really relevant topics, especially for the state of Arizona. It certainly is a good report. I look forward to looking at it.
And Audra, just one thing that struck me by surprise, probably shouldn't have, was that they define civic responsibility as voting. And I think we all tend to think of volunteering and what you're doing within the town, but they said that, and I only read the little, sort of the summary of it, said that that was the ultimate civic responsibility, and it never occurred to me that way.
Councilmember Contino.
Thank you. Audra, I just want to thank you for all your work and all your commissioners' work on everything that you've done. I think the one thing that impressed me the most this time about doing it this time around was the idea that the people in general all work together. And it was a fun time, more so than just a have to do something. And I want to commend you for bringing that out this year.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Contina. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Shannon. And Audra, Councilmember Dickey. I'm sorry, let me start all way over. Vice Mayor Hanson.
Audra, thank you for the extra effort to put in all the individual comments. I mean, that was like hearing from individual citizens,
It literally
verbatim
was
what they had
hearing, yes.
said, and that was great. And the kids, that was wonderful. I mean, this one in here, I wish we could have flying saucers because we can go places quicker. And little did this 9-year-old know they're going to have a UFO convention at the Radisson Resort.
How relevant.
But this was great, thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you.
That's good. And that was good to bring up. The report is very lengthy, but it is available to everybody online. I don't suggest printing it out, maybe saving it to your hard drive, but it is really interesting to look through all the raw data, again, from this just phase 2, just as phase 1 was abundant with raw data as well. So, but thank you for going, and the volunteers that worked with you, and going to where the people were, and going to their places of meetings and all the organizations, because that's obviously what makes up our community. 300 people in phase 2, over 1,000 now, and of course thank Fountain Hills Times for covering it so well also, as you mentioned. But Audra and all the volunteers that have taken us this far, thank you again, and we look forward to a great final output that we will again keep alive through the SPAC and the council utilizing it primarily for goals and keeping us in alignment with our community. So thank you, Audra.
Thank you.
Good work. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor 7-0.
Thank you again. Item number 7 is consideration of a temporary use permit for the farmers market, repeating outdoor sales, retail sales events for 2010. Welcome, Gene.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The farmers market is back. This item is a request to consider a temporary use permit, TU 2010-01, for repeating outdoor retail sales of farmers market. Monique Leitner for M&M Events, LLC, is requesting approval for repeating farmers markets in 2010. These events will be held from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. every Thursday from February 11th through April 29th. The exceptions will be the week of the Great Fair and the annual Wine and Cheese Affair. As you know, Section 5.16.b.4 of the zoning ordinance allows for such repeating events. The request complies with all aspects of the regulations. These events have been planned to be in conjunction with the weekly Art on the Avenue events, and the coordinators for both of these events are working closely together for synergy. This was part of the vision that Judy Yates brought to the council months ago. The request was posted, notices mailed, there were no inquiries or objections submitted. This is the planned location of the events. The initial focus area for the vendors will be in the median adjacent to Verde River Drive to the west. As you know, the Art on the Avenue is to the east and closer to the Saguaro. If the two events prove successful, their coverage would expand on the median. And that's pretty much it. Staff recommends that the Town Council approve this permit request. Thank you, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gene. Anyone from the public on this, Bev?
No, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Can we get a motion on this item?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions for staff? Councilmember Contino.
Thank you. I see on my vicinity map, Gene, that we have two sites, east and west of Verde River Drive. Now, today, I go out there every week to the art deal, and it's really a nice thing. If we take and move that way up on the west end of Verde River Drive, is that going to distract from the rest of it? In other words, it's going to be too far away from where all the action is, because 99% of it is east of Verde River Drive.
I think, and maybe Brian could answer that, but the way I understand it, it's pretty much this whole thing's a pilot, and they're hoping that this will expand, and the art on the avenue is pretty much focused towards the east part of the median, towards Saguaro, but that could expand to the west, as well as the farmers market, depending on how that goes, that could expand east or west as well.
But not so far up on the west that it's going to be out of the sight. In other words, maybe behind the bushes after that fountain, the fountain and the bushes, then right behind that would be the farmer's market. Is that where we're looking at something? Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Contino. Could you put that map back up?
Sure.
There? And can you, I don't know if you have a pointer, or can you describe where the farmer's market will be exactly? I see the blacked-in area.
Yeah, the farmers market will be right adjacent to Verde River Drive to the west, basically across from where the Chase Bank is.
So right here?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
And as you know, art on the avenue currently is from the center part of the east section and then closer as you head towards Saguaro Boulevard.
All right. Good. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Gene. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Mayor 7-0.
Thank you much. Next item on the agenda is item 8, consideration of a proposed preliminary master plat for Fountain Hills ASLD. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Fire this up. This is an application for a preliminary master plat for Fountain Hills ASLD, a future master plan community on roughly 2 square miles of land with a maximum final residential density of 1,350 total single-family dwelling units. Property is located on the northeast corner of the town and borders with the McDowell Mountain Park on the north and Fort McDowell Yavapai community on the east. Property is also the subject of 3 previous approvals, which will help govern certain aspects of this development. Resolution 0812 established the zoning districts on the property. 0824 established the general plan's land use designations, and 0825 updated the pre-annexation development agreement. As I said, the proposal is for a preliminary master plat. The preliminary master plat is provided for in state statutes and is a plan that shows the creation of large parcels which will be the subject of future development within the context of a much larger development proposal, in this case a master plan residential community. A preliminary master plat is a conceptual level above the more familiar preliminary plat. It doesn't authorize any physical activity and isn't recorded. A master plat's purpose is to provide a baseline reference that officially outlines the development parcels, the non-developable parcels, major arterial roadway locations, and how they relate to the general plan, the zoning, the cut-fill waivers, and the development agreement. It also provides the base for the developer and the town to move the project forward to the next step, which would be roadway improvement plans, grading plans, parcel platting, and ultimately building construction. The preliminary master plat outlines 22 parcels which are developable. The parcels in yellow are the residential parcels. The red parcel is commercial. The light green shows where the parks will be. And the purple on the top is the lodging parcel. There are also 50 open space tracts. Those are shown in dark green. Those are slated to be permanent open space. Some of those tracts may see some necessary activity such as roadway crossings or utility installations, and that was anticipated when the tracts were zoned. And this is reflected in the different zoning designations and open space designations. Otherwise, they'll remain untouched and will be protected by hillside protection easements once the development is complete. The property will be accessible from 8 locations. Starting on the left, Richwood Avenue, and then along the bottom, Blue Jay, Pelican, Fountain Hills Boulevard, Ivory, El Sobrante, and Bahia. And then again on the north end, on the top, Fountain Hills Boulevard. The current location of McDowell Mountain Road, I'm not sure if you can even see it on this plan. It's these dashed lines, light gray. Will be relocated to the new location and will become Fountain Hills Boulevard. Once the new road is constructed and accepted by the town, the old road will be abandoned. Preliminary master plat approval is administrative in nature, and it's the first step in the design process of developing this property. Due to the size of this project, the town encouraged the applicant to submit this preliminary master plat. It's actually an extra step in the normal platting process and allows additional upfront scrutiny for the project. This master plat defines the parcel boundaries which have been designed to coincide with the previously adopted zoning district boundaries and general land use boundaries. Master preliminary plat will not be recorded, and approval at this stage is not an approval to build. This is only step 1. We won't see any dirt moved until later. Roadway improvement plans or park grading plans are approved, and no residential parcels will be subdivided until they receive approval of their own individual preliminary and final plats. Of course, those subsequent plats will not only have to agree with this master plat, but also with the previous approvals and the requirements of the town's subdivision ordinance. Both the water company and the sanitary district have noted that they do not yet have agreements in place for service to this development. So, in addition to stipulating compliance with pre-existing agreements and regulations, staff has required that notes be placed on the relevant plan sheets requiring master water and master wastewater plans prior to any preliminary plat approvals. And stipulations have been included in the staff recommendation to require that the utility agreements be in place prior to any final plat approvals. This is in keeping with the subdivision ordinance requirements. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval at their January 14th meeting, and staff recommends the Town Council approve the preliminary master plat as presented, subject to the stipulations in the staff report. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Bob. Anyone from the public on this one, Deb?
Yes, Mayor. Glenn Pinario? Pinaro.
No? Come on forward to the podium. Welcome, Mr. Pinaro.
Thank you. Glenn Pinaro, Chairman of the Fountain Hills Sanitary District. I'd like to thank the Mayor and Council for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I would ask that we sent a letter to the Mayor and Council on the 2nd of February and asked that that be included as part of the public record. We would like to make it clear that the district in no way wants to be an obstacle, nor does it want to delay the process for this project. We're simply performing our statutory duties. The district has not formally agreed to provide sewer service to the Yeoman property as yet. The property is not within the district boundaries, as you know. The district's approval will occur after execution of a pre-annexation agreement, and if the town is prepared to move forward with the approval of the preliminary master plat application, we respectfully request that the council's approval will be conditioned on the property being annexed into the Fountain Hills Sanitary District. Otherwise, the district feels that the approval of the preliminary plat puts the cart before the horse as it relates to the approval of a wastewater master plan for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinaro.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Let's see here. Council, look for a motion. If you read what we have here prepared.
Mayor,
Councilmember Dickey.
I move to approve the preliminary master plat for Fountain Hills ASLD, subject to the stipulations outlined in the staff report.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second. Any questions for staff?
I have a question.
Bob?
Oh.
Councilmember Dickey.
Thanks, Mayor. What we just heard now, is that covered with the stipulations, or would we have to try to make another amendment or add a stipulation?
Well, our stipulations do not require that they enter into, what was it?
The annex.
The annex. I don't know if we can actually stipulate that. That's a legal question.
Well, the part that says, excuse me, Mayor, the applicant shall secure approval to provide domestic sewer service to this property prior to the final plat approval. That's not the same thing. I guess.
Andrew, can you help us with the language we're including, or staff's including on the stipulations?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Dickey, the stipulation number 5 in the staff report is related to domestic sewer services, the same as the stipulations that have been on the plat notes and in the previous agreements. What we don't have any control over is annexation or not into the sanitary district. Of course, that's everybody's goal and hope, but we really don't have any authorization to impose a stipulation or enforce a stipulation that relates to a different taxing entity. So I'm not sure that is any different than what's required here. You cannot approve a final plat for any of these lots until you have water and sewer provided to them. So even though the town doesn't provide those services, it's the same effect as though you were issuing will serves for them. You can't approve the plats until those are authorized by the independent entities, regardless of who they are.
Thank you.
All right, so reading 4 and 5, we're ensuring that before they have a final plat approval, they will have domestic water and sewer.
That's correct. And then there are notes on the plan that require that the designs be done for preliminary plat.
Preliminary.
Even before that, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Go ahead.
Vice Mayor Hanson.
Thank you for supplying the plat maps. That was much easier to read. I noticed on a number of the pages, it always referred to conceptual plans. And there was one in there for water, one for sewer. And I just wondered if either the water company or the sanitary district had seen the conceptual plans that were
Yes,
included.
they have.
Okay.
Councilmember Leger? Okay.
Nothing, I was just saying.
Is the applicant here this evening? I have a question.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. For your records, Wendy Riddell with the law firm of Berry and Demore.
I understand we're kind of at a 30,000-foot level with where we're at with this plan, and there's much more work to do, particularly with sanitary and chaparral water. I did have an inquiry from a citizen today, so I'd like to take advantage of the fact that you're here this evening. A citizen had brought to council's attention the notion of connectivity between your proposed development and McDowell Mountain Park. And I recognize at this phase you're not putting roads in and connectivity and parking lots, so forth and so on. They were concerned that, however, that your group perhaps had not interfaced with McDowell Mountain folks. Could you kind of address that if you have, if not, if there's plans to do that and where that fits into this whole process?
Thank you, Mayor, Councilman Leger. We did, in fact, very early on interface with the folks from the county park system at the time of the general plan and zoning. You are correct that that's not really part of the consideration this evening. Those types of consideration, be they recreational opportunities, connectivity, those are all things that will be considered at the appropriate time when the individual parcel lot and plats come forward.
Did you, in your conversations with park officials, did they give you any indication that they were interested in any type of joint ventures?
Mayor, council member, in fact, at the time they were not interested in any type of joint ventures. The southernmost part of that park is a high-use bike facility with mountain bikes, and they were, frankly, concerned about having some connectivity and have people walking up there. They didn't consider that to be a complementary use with their current park facilities.
Mayor, if I may, in that is an expressed interest of the citizens of Fountain Hills, is that something you all will be pursuing in the future?
Mayor, council member, it's certainly a conversation that will take place as we work on those individual parcel lotting plats.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Good, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Dickey?
No, Mayor, Wendy, from this, probably the same gentleman, also had a question about parcel 8, and I think I'm just asking for confirmation that in general those things come later, and I just wanted to confirm that right now, that because we're not talking about that level of detail.
That's correct, Mayor, Councilmember Dickey. We are not talking about individual lots on any of the parcels. We're simply talking about being able to take the approved land uses from the general plan and zoning and to create a baseline engineering document so we can frankly work cooperatively with the town and considering each of these parcels on a parcel-by-parcel basis.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Riddell, thank you for coming here tonight, and I want to thank the staff, our staff, for working so hard on a very big, important project. Obviously, we want this to move forward, and we would like this to start construction tomorrow so we can move on in our community with some more developments and more people to enjoy our downtown and our community on its whole. So this is our preliminary master plat. There are no lots that are included on this. It's just the parcels themselves, and there's been no zoning changes or land use changes on this. So this is, as staff explained, an extra step that we're going through to reach a preliminary master plat attainment. But appreciate you being here and working with our staff to ensure that this next big part of Fountain Hills works well with what we have here today.
Thank you.
So thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Hanson, Vice Mayor.
Just real quick, I noticed that like Richwood, for one, is identified on the plans as a minor collector. Now, by approving that, are we locked in to what size these streets are going to be, or can that be discussed more at a later date?
Good. Andrew?
Thought you were going to let Wendy get that one. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the only thing that the plats do when we get to a final plat is establish the rights-of-way. The actual engineering of the streets will occur at individual plat time. You know, parcels, and my eyes are not good enough to identify the numbers north and south of that road. But as those plats come in, we'll be determining the actual cross-section of the street. And I think there's going to be a fair amount of flexibility subject to the town engineer's discretion on what is a safe roadway for the amount of traffic.
Well, thank you. The plan is, as it was approved, there are a number of streets going through neighborhoods. And that's why I still have concern of the size of the streets going into the neighborhoods and cut-through traffic and that whole discussion.
And that discussion will have, I'm sure, a lot of time and effort by the town engineer to reduce the streets as much as possible. I know that the Boulder connection, we have preliminary discussions about that, but you know, in the end, it's an engineering discussion. You know, we have a safety standard that we've established for the rest of the streets in town. Some of our older streets have a different standard. Whether or not that standard will be able to be complied with, I don't think we can even guess yet.
Councilmember Shambo.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is for you or this is for Bob, but the approval that we're giving tonight is not defining the roads. It's just defining the property lines for the specific zoning areas and giving us the plats. Is that correct?
Bob?
Tonight's approval is approving the parcels and the general locations of the roads, not the
Right, not defining the roads, but just giving us a general
right.
idea
And actually,
of where the roads are.
we're not laying on any right-of-ways or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Contino?
Yes, didn't we have some hiking trails that we had, at the park, we had worked with McDowell Mountain Park? The trails go all the way up into the park now? They go right up to it?
There were some preliminary discussions about that, and in fact, the development agreement talks a little bit about that, working with them to create some connectivity. That'll come in when we begin to look at the individual parcels and the roadway layouts and making sure that that connectivity, if they're even...
I thought maybe we had hiking trails up there already.
I think it's likely that there is just right a lot beyond the boundary, and also that bike course is right there. That takes up probably a good majority of that area down further to the east. But there are also a lot of discussion lately with our participating and working as a very good partner, the McDowell Mountain Regional Park, in connecting our preserve. Right. So that's been making a lot of press, and of course the Sonoran Conservancy and the MMPC people working hard to make that happen. But that was a great partnership, so hopefully we'll see more of that.
Right, so the talks are open.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor, 7-0.
All right, thank you very much. Item number 9, council discussion direction to the town manager. None. Item number 10, summary council request and report on recent activities by the town manager. So you usually do that on that prior item, but now I'm going to keep it moving and do it on the right item.
Understand?
Item number 10.
Had a mayor and council had a wonderful opportunity to attend briefly, but I did attend the Arizona City Management Association conference, and in my report to you this coming week, I'll recap some of the valuable things that we learned, and particularly a clearer understanding of where we're going economically in the state and as a community. And it was described this way as far as the economy. We used to be drowning in 30 feet of water, but now we're drowning in 20 feet of water. So things are coming back, and I'm optimistic about that. Even the presenter, an economist, wagered with folks that within about 3 or 4 years that we'd be back to where we were before the Great Recession. And he even said that if we're not, if we gave him our business card, he'd pay us $20. I don't think that's going to compensate for the fact that he's wrong, but and I did not take him up on that. I want you to know that. Andrew attended with me, and we listened also to the Secretary of State. Very valuable information. I had a chance also last week to have my first experience with home delivered meals, out there delivering them, and actually watching the process from the very beginning to the very end, and it was very valuable for me to gain a better understanding functionally of how that benefits our citizens. So that was very, very valuable. And keep in mind that in 1 week from now, and it's very important for everyone to know this council's already is acting on those 8 goals from the, or focus areas of the strategic plan. You have in your possession now 8 proposed goals, and also some initiatives that we'll be able to work on next Thursday, and we hope to wrap up that process and get to work. Also, our department heads are also in possession of those initiatives and are beginning to formulate their budgets and doing a wonderful job in putting together the biggest bang for the buck in this coming year. So with that, any questions you have, I'd be happy to answer.
No, thanks, Rick. I wanted to mention with this huge rain we had, after not having much for quite some time, obviously our roads, even roads that we weren't expecting to see holes, provided plenty of potholes. And I just wanted to, obviously, that draws greater attention to our maintaining our infrastructure and staying on top of that. We understand Saguaro has had problems, and we considered a bond on that previously. But I wanted to bring it up because there was so much to cover. I just wanted to commend the staff for doing an amazing job in addressing that effectively and efficiently, and then also in the preparations for the rain. Public safety, fire, and police for doing a great job in keeping us safe. And fortunately, we didn't have a great deal of problem. Things seemed to have gone pretty well, and it was probably a large part of maintaining our washes and keeping everybody informed and being prepared. So,
Absolutely, good point.
I wanted to thank the staff and everyone on that. And in light of that, make sure reminder, next Saturday, everybody come out for Public Safety Appreciation Day at the Fountain Park to thank everybody personally that takes care of us every day and night. With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.